gentlemen, hopefully I didn't goof because the setup in our studio has been slightly changed. So welcome, Graham Hill, and welcome, dear audience, at your own screen to our show, where it is a friendly good morning, a friendly good afternoon, or a friendly good evening. We would like to entertain you or educate you as what you decide. We are open for discussion, so utilize please the comment areas for Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever channel you are watching us right now. And we have a look to integrate your questions and give you honest answers out of the perspective of our expert. Speaking about our expert, and sorry if I'm trying to look to the right or the left because I have a setup with several screens. So some things are happening at the right and some things are happening on the left and naturally in the middle of the screen. After you have had the opportunity, probably, as Graham is a regular guest, I anyhow would like to introduce them with the friendly words of several chaps where I stole them. Dr. Graham Hill is a leading voice in CRM and customer experience with over 25 years of hands-on transformation work across industries. Known for his strategic depth and bold thinking, Graham combines real-world expertise with a sharp focus on value co-creation, watch out, Winfried Felser, service innovation, and AI in CX. He's a regular guest in our show, and we love to discuss on facts, figures, and positive outcomes. As Paul Greenberg has said, the godfather of CRM, he's done the work. He challenges the status quo, and he always backs it up with data. Expect some insights that are practical, provocative, and grounded in experience. Graham, what did I miss, aside of the aspect that I recall that we were at an event from a late Sugar CRM when Larry Augustin took over, and we had a very interesting chat, which led to the invitation you as a keynote speaker on the late CRM Expo, where I was the product manager and so the chap who did the program.
All sounds good. It's the best intro I've had for ages.
Yeah. What we were recently finding out, what you discussed with some expertise and some comments on, let's say, flashlights. Either they are coming from Thomas, my dear colleague, who is on the road to the Zoho event in the United States in Austin, or from our CX heroine, Annika Björk, or Cyril Luxinger, that we would like to judge. And as you, as a little teaser, gave me some of these very lovely British humor YouTube videos, such as "There is nothing like a good dispute." So let's kick it off. Help some CX leaders to choose carefully between operational customer experience, OCX, fixing variability, my goodness, variability, also Variabilität in German, and strategic, SCX, competing on customer outcomes and decision quality. Just give me a little helper, because I'm observing that a lot of CX teams try to perfect journeys about ideas. They think they know the customer, where fewer compete on the outcomes and the decision quality. Today, let's choose which path our audience would take next. Can you help us to define the operational OCX and strategic as CX, please.
Okay, that's a good intro. So you're right about the conversation with Cyril and Annika and others, of course, over the last few days. So I take quite a fundamental position on this, and that is that we know how to do strategy. If you take a popular method or approach today, for example, Lafley and Martin's approach, playing to win, you ask 5 questions. You ask, what are your aspirational goals? Where are you going to play? Which markets, which customers, which products, etc. How are you going to win? What's your value proposition? You're going to go to market. What's your operating model to deliver those things? And how are you going to measure success? Those 5 questions. They're strategic questions. So if I look at the strategic goals of companies, but I don't find CX as one of their strategic goals, it's not one of those aspirational things they want to aim for, then my inevitable conclusion is that CX is not strategic for those companies. So, for example, I looked at the top 3 of the top 5 companies who were the best scores for customer experience in the KPMG Nunwood study they do every year, the most recent one. Richard Sounds, Nationwide Insurance, and Emirates Airlines. Each of those had some mention of CX, but out of the top 5 strategic goals, only 2 of them had anything to do with CX at all. That was Richard Sounds looking to maintain its superior advice in its shops, and Nationwide looking to maintain its continuous presence in neighborhoods. Emirates didn't have a single CX thing on it at all, except for perhaps one tangentially, which was implementing Starlink in its site. But that wasn't why it was doing it. It's doing it as revenue. So,
my goodness.
Even if you look at the best customer experience companies according to KPMG Nunwood study, and it's a very, very good study, even they don't put customer experience as one of their strategic objectives. And so when I look at other companies, what I see is a divide. A small number of companies want to compete on a meaningfully differentiated customer experience better than the competitors. The vast majority, in other words, they want to play to win using customer experience. The vast majority don't want to do that. It's just an operational element of their operating model. They're playing to play. We know from lots of studies, for example, Michael Mobassan's work at Consilient research work, Consilient Observer at Morgan Stanley. He's shown that these companies that only play to play revert to the mean over time. So by not competing on the experience, if you like, they're dooming themselves to not really winning through the experience at all. So 5% of companies, maybe less, are strategically oriented around the customer experience. 95% is just part of the operating model, and you run these things in very different terms. And that's my central thesis, that I see a lot of people talking about CX strategy, and my argument is, if your business strategy is competing on CX, that is your CX strategy. If it's not competing on CX, it's just an operational element, you should not have a CX strategy, because it detracts from your business strategy. It risks deflecting from what you're trying to focus on as a business, because it's not the key priority. And it's just people creating something that shouldn't really exist. Your job as a operational CX person is to align your capability development with your business strategy, not to create your own CX strategy. So it's either you have a CX strategy and that's your business strategy, or you have a plan to implement your CX aligned with the business strategy. That's it. There's nothing in between.
Very well. That gives me only a slight opportunity to go for that question I have prepared, because I liked it. Give us your 1-minute litmus test. What tells you a roadmap is OCX parity versus SCX advantage?
Okay, I think that's relatively easy to understand. So it's not about the roadmap. The roadmap is just a way to implement things. The roadmap is the consequence of creating a strategy. So rather than look at the roadmap, I'd look at the business strategy and say, look at your business strategy. Is
Okay.
it all about the customer experience? Is it all about identifying the customers that you can win with? It's about identifying a superior value proposition where you are competing on the quality of your experience, not other things, not cost cutting, not other things, just the quality of the experience. If that is what you have, then you have a strategic CX approach to business. If it is not in your strategy, then by definition, you are going to have an operational approach to CX, and therefore you're going to have a plan. And that plan will say, okay, these are the things we want to focus on this year. We've got so much money to spend. Here are the priorities. Priorities should be fixing things that are broken rather than introducing new things. Certainly not, shouldn't be priority, shouldn't be technology. We'll talk about AI, no doubt, later. Fixing things that are broken because we know that broken things have a much higher influence on customers than making new things that are equally good. And then you're going to have a plan that to develop to sweat your capabilities you already have in the short term for ROI, to develop new capabilities that allow you to grow your business, align with your strategy, which is measured through NPV, and maybe a few experiments where you're not really sure what's going to go on in the future, where you need a bit of skin in the game to develop knowledge, skills, and experience, so that when you need to decide, do I invest in this experimental item? AI is a great example. Then I know enough about it to know what to do and how to do it. The 3 Horizons model, in fact, from McKinsey.
And it is interesting. Visiting a customer, consulting him in some implementation business, and the several groups which are present there, we had the discussion such as AI is a beautiful helping hand, such as I call it the elves from Cologne 2.0. Yeah? So the next edition, so to say, the next edition in a way of that the little dwarfs have visited us in the form of a computer solution, such as artificial intelligence. Now, my colleagues, die Heinzelmännchen from Köln, exactly. The translation also in good old English is the elves from Cologne. So we not have a shoemaker's wife who is spoiling the whole stuff, but we do have people which are not educated, not enabled to utilize it to its benefit. And so it's like a new toy for the boys. And if they want to goof, they can goof. So it is some stuff in between. But let's refocus on why CX programs stall by your perspective. I would like to give the starter as luckily you have not only published some very smart stuff in the past, but commented on your rich foundation of stories and articles you have published in your time at Customer Think, when it still was CRO in that period. Sorry, I have to silence my machine here, which is nastily making sounds.
You need a cup of water like Mr. Bean.
Yeah. What I wanted to go for is the touchpoint happiness versus the outcome success.
Sure.
There are a lot of colleagues we had already, such as those chaps which do a lot of customer analysis, customer happiness, customer satisfaction surveys, and all that stuff, and they make a business out of it. Their CEO was quite critical on what to use to the advantage, because he said data is cool, but not go too much for CSAT or others. What is, by your perspective, if the CSAT journey can still fail at the customer's job to be done? What are your observations there?
So there's a whole variety of questions in one. Let me try and boil it down to the key questions. So the key question goes back to the 1980s, which is to do with service quality. If we remember, people don't come for an experience typically. You might go to Disney for an experience, but most people, you go to your bank or your telco or your utility for an experience, you just go to get a job done. And you only go there to get a job done because you don't have the resources to do it all yourself, or it's easier to get their resources to help you. So you go to them to get access to resources to get your job done fast, easy, better than you can do it by yourself. Typical, it is the work of Coase that won in I think 1937 the Nobel Prize for Economics for this work on why do firms exist. So we go to firms to get stuff done. And then usually it takes more than one interaction. And those interactions, the sequence of interaction is the journey we have. The sum of all the journeys is the experience. So if I start on a journey, I've got a job to be done. I know what good looks like. I have desired outcomes in journey language. And I want to make progress towards the end point where I get everything I want done to my satisfaction. So if I start have an interaction with a company, I know how to assess whether it's going to work or not, whether to go on to the next interaction, whether to abandon, whether to go somebody else instead. And there are frameworks like justice theory that tells us I'm going to look at 4 things. I'm going to look at is the process appropriate to get towards what I want to get to? What's called procedural justice. It's going to look at is the outcome likely to become what I want to get out of it? So distributional justice. Am I being treated like a human, like a person, like a valued customer? Interactional justice. And am I getting the information I required to make decisions? Because journeys are all about decisions. It's not, we don't go just for the sake of it, or it's just about how we make decisions that drive those things. The decision flow sits behind the journey flow. It's the atomic level. So I get informational justice. So we know how customers will assess these things, and so we look at does it make sense? Am I going to get what I want? Am I getting towards my goal? Is the process appropriate? Am I being treated like a human? And am I getting information to make good choices? If the answer is yes, then I might go to my next interaction. But those interactions emerge out of the one you're doing now. It's not planned in advance. It's something you do regularly. If the answer is no, then I might pause and make a break. Or I might go somewhere else. Or I might decide, you know what, this really isn't working for me, so I'm going to abandon. And the funny thing is, although we're focused and obsessed, I would say, with functional outcomes, so functional jobs to be done, often the emotional jobs, how I want to feel about myself, are actually more important. So we've all abandoned a process, abandoned a journey in the middle, not because we couldn't see we were going to get to the end, but because we were treated like dirt. And that's not acceptable to abandon the journey. Or we've come back on another day when somebody else wasn't present. Which actually leads to another interesting thing that, we talk about relationships with companies. We don't have them by and large. It's relatively rare, but Liliander and Ruse suggest it's less than 5% of people have relationships with customers from early research. Where we do have one, it's almost invariably with a person who's gone the extra mile to help us get something done, often against company policies. So we have a relationship with a person, not with a company, and not with a brand in that way. In fact, we don't care about most brands anyway. If 75% of them disappear tomorrow, we either would replace them or not even notice. That's Havas research. So we're fortunate in having Alex Mead, one of the people that I look up to the most, on the call, and just left a great question.
The personalization theater I want to throw in as a teaser. What's your take on that? The personalization theater.
Okay, so personalization is a great thing. People say they want personalization, but people say when you look at the surveys and you dig down into the detail, they want the 3 R's. They want to be treated with respect. That means respecting me as a person and for all my custom in the past, not just for what I'm going to be doing in the future. That means I want recommendations that are appropriate for me when they are appropriate, not just all the time. But most of all, it means reinforcing the value I've already got from what I bought by helping me to get more value out of using it. So marketing tends to be mostly about acquisition. Let's hire a new customer, or cross upselling, on selling, and so forth. There's very little marketing about helping you to get more value out of what you've already bought. And that's really what I think of as engagement marketing. So all those things play a role, but again, we're not talking about relationships. We're not talking about loyalty either. Loyalty comes from somewhere else. We're talking about retention, repurchase, and a little bit of recommendation.
I also have a little doubt on these, let's say, by some vendors promoted playbooks. These copy and paste playbooks, OCX best practice as are table stakes. CX requires explicit choices about which outcomes you will own. Give us your take on that one, please, before I go for a question we have live.
Yeah. So playbooks are a great thing. The reason why is because if you think about the different sorts of decisions we need to make, and think about Dave Snowden's Cynefin model, some are clear. We know exactly what best practice looks like. What we have to do is categorize what we're looking at and work out what the best answer is. Some are complicated, so there are more moving parts. We need to analyze and decide what the best. We need experts, usually a variety of them, to help us decide what to do. If you have a best practice, or even a common good practice, then a playbook helps to distill that into an easy-to-use framework that somebody who doesn't know about the best practice can take. So, when I worked with a UK credit card company many years ago, my job was to try and restructure their organization so they could become prepared to face the onslaught of Capital One. They were running 200 campaigns a year. Capital One was doing 90,000 marketing experiments a year, or of magnitude more. You can imagine the fear that the board had whenever somebody mentioned the word Capital One in a board meeting. My job was to help prepare for that organizationally. But I wasn't going to touch things like card operations because that's a machine. That's a best practice. There's a playbook. If you get a credit card company, there's a playbook to do that. We don't need to do that. But, so I have no problem with playbooks providing they're based on best practices. It's a great helpful thing.
Yeah, I would like to use our dear audience a bit. Alex Mead is addressing, please read by yourself, Graham. He believed for years that CX should not even exist as a profession. Customer experience is just a contributing factor to achieving more tangible goals. Example, acquiring more customers, retaining more customers, and gaining more revenue from customers, all happening at the most efficient operating cost. That is some of the part. Squeeze the cow or the lemon till there is no more in it. Yeah? So I believe to achieve these goals, customers must find it as engaging an experience to inquire, buy, fulfill, fix, return, repeat. Yeah? The problem is there are too many CX leaders, and he continues, before we go to that, question to you. You mentioned the value of customers wanting to be treated like humans, as we had it. So you are concerned about the strategy of most leading global brands to introduce more and more agentic AI solution to replace human-to-human interactions. Let's answer this clear question first and then go to the statement, if it's all right for you, William.
Do you want to paraphrase that a little bit? Because there's two questions in there, really. You want to ask the last one?
Yeah, I honestly want to start with the last one, such as, are you afraid that too much AI is disturbing the human factor? And then we go for the first one.
That's fine. So that's again, that's a very, very good question, and it's a very relevant question as AI is now everywhere in CX as well as everywhere else. AI is, we're talking about LLMs now, LLMs, agentic and what have you. We're not talking about traditional machine learning of various kinds and what have you. That's not what we're talking about now. So I think there's a lot of LLMs and agentic are still what I would think of as experimental technologies. The horizon of three things. So if you look at the deployment patterns of LLMs, we find individuals getting a lot of value out of them for their own personal use within companies, but companies getting a lot less value out of them. And the reasons why that is, so if you look at work of Eric Brinolson, for example, at MIT, now at Stanford, he talks about the productivity paradox, about the J-shaped productivity curve. So when we start out with a new general purpose technology like AI, we have to spend a lot of money implementing it, but we don't get much benefit. We go down into the bottom of the J where we're actually underwater. We're not actually making any money. We see from various studies, some disputed, some not, that a large part of corporate LLM deployment struggles. If you look at Johnson & Johnson, for example, they ran, I think, something 800 to 900 experiments with different uses of LLMs to eventually identify, I think it was 15 to 25 of those 800 to 900 that actually were worthwhile doing. They're experimenting on a large scale. So we're still experimenting with LLMs and having some success. However, we tend to use LLMs in CX today to do things we're already doing, only more efficiently and particularly more cheaply, with or without people involved. So we're automating the current operating model. But most operating models today are broken because they've never been designed per se. They've evolved like a West Country hotel, adding rooms and annexes and chalets and caravan parks. Do you want proof of that? Look at the average conversion rates for marketing. So average conversion rates for marketing vary from 0.07% for digital ads to 2.8% for in-house email lists. So I'm not getting a very good, if that was anybody else, I'd get fired, wouldn't I? If I got 2% response, conversion or whatever my metrics are in finance, I'd be thrown out of the door. I'd probably be hung upon, nailed to a cross outside the door as a warning to other people not to be so useless. But marketing get away with that to a certain degree. So we're still experimenting, we're still implementing AI to automate broken stuff. And that can lead to some strange consequences. So, for example, I can use AI very successfully to generate lots and lots of content, often content better than people can generate themselves. Even better, marketers don't generate content, agencies generate content, let's face it. So even better than the best agencies generate. But if I have thousands of pieces of content tailored around individuals, first of all, we get the point that if you look at the work of Binnett and Field and the long and short of it, originally in the 13, 14 years ago, they show you that this sort of sales activation communications are going to be helping you to make choices. It's, whether I like cricket and they show me somebody playing, Ian Burton playing cricket in the good old days, or whether I like fly fishing, during fly fishing is irrelevant. It's about helping me to get my job done. That's why we use sales activation communications. So I can easily generate lots of things because I can do so. They don't actually help the process. And also, if I generate thousands of different iterations, how do I statistically test those to identify which ones actually work or not? I mean, I've worked on some of the early days of email marketing with banks in the past, and we're talking about hundreds or maybe 1,000 different iterations of email newsletters. And I had enormous conversations over a long period of time of my team with marketing compliance. Financial services, you have to have compliance. It's about how do you make sure that the marketing communications are compliant, and make sure they're not misleading, they're not confusing, they don't fall foul of what we today would call consumer duty in the UK or vulnerability legislation. So if I'm starting to generate loads and loads of content, which I can do easily, and good content as well, how the hell do I, first of all, make sure it's compliant with the law? And secondly, how do I measure the fact that it's what actually works? Because my sample sizes are 1. So that takes a very different sort of statistical analysis. And let's face it, most marketing people aren't up to that currently, even using last touch attribution combined with experimentation combined with MMM. So it's a really tough call. So we are throwing tools at what we already know, and what we already know isn't particularly good. The real advantage will come when we start to reinvent the marketing operating model, built around the strengths of AI, because some things it's absolutely amazing. Passing lots of information, analyzing and coordination. Amazing. We can't do things like that. Just not made that way.
I would like
that'll start to come with value.
I'm grateful that Uli Krump is giving us several thumbs up on our discussion. I would like to jump in on Alex's first question again, and welcome Tony as well. Tony Kiskin, quite well, Graham has joined us, and there is another chap, Eckhard Böhme, who has some very valuable questions. So we jump in on Alex ones here, that CX should not even exist as a profession, as he is more to the side of the AI approach, that here the customer is not respected very well. He's more or less the lemon or the cow, the lemon to be squeezed, the cow to be milked. in my words.
Yeah, there is something to that, I think, there isn't there. So CX people, I mean, Alex is a true CX leader. There are not many people that I really, really respect in CX business, really not many at all. Alex and Ben Phillips are two of the people that I respect the most because they've had decades of experience at the leading large corporations. They know their stuff. And Alex's epic framework is a work of art. Simple, easy, powerful, amazing stuff. Everybody should look at it. CX roles exist because there's a gap. So if you think back to where customer experience came from, the different sources originally, in my view, came from the combination of CRM looking at marketing, sales, and service separately, and somebody need to bring them all together into one coherent experience for the customer. And then it all got kicked off with the experience economy being written in 1997 from memory, and then the whole thing exploded and became a big thing. So the fact that marketing, sales, and service are not coordinated and aligned and don't collaborate as well as they should do. I've had many conversations with marketers who really do not see eye to eye. Tony Kaskinen's work in 180 Ops is about building revenue ops as a way to do what CRM never did and what CX is failing to do, to integrate marketing, sales, and service into one coherent whole, driven by data and analytics. Another, again, amazing stuff. So the fact that it does exist indicates there's a gap that needs to be fulfilled. But the question then becomes, is a CX role the right one to do that? And my argument always has been that the CX role is often ceremonial. It has no responsibility or authority over touch points where you have with customers, marketing, sales, service, operations, has no budget and no staff. I worked with a UK telco. They had 5 people in CX and 200 people in marketing. And your staff describes what your power and your authority is in many ways. So they have to influence through soft power from the side. That's really, really hard. If you go talk to somebody in marketing about improving the customer experience, and marketing's got some targets to deliver and some campaigns to get out of the door and all the usual stuff, because they're always really, really busy, then often you don't get the time of day, even if you have some great ideas. So, and CX has always struggled to show the value, economic value, the shareholder value improvements from implementing it. People like Alex Mead and Ben Phillips, they had to do this. This is the bread and butter. I don't even need to think about this thing when I talk to Alex. It's automatic. He knows what's going on much better than I do, in fact. But for most of the CXs I talk to, they're so far removed from understanding how the customer experience drives shareholder value and showing that to the CFO in their own language. They don't care about NPS, they don't care about CSAT, they don't care about CES. They compare about sales growth rate and operating profit margins and retention rates and what have you. It often makes a rod for its own back because it isn't focused on how it drives value. And there's other reasons why it's so difficult as well. But that lack of power and authority and that lack of being able to show it creates value are 2 key drivers of why CX is a ceremonial role in so many organizations.
I would love to share now a statement from Eckhart Böhme. He said CX and other functions should aid at helping customers make progress in life or business, and that's the only thing they care about. A self-serving attitude may grant short-term gains, but does not create a sustainable trust-based relationship where we are going to love to go for. What's your statement on that one?
Yes, it's so. I mean, Eckhart is so true. It is a bit of a no-brainer, but it's worthwhile saying. Often marketing is, the customer is somebody with a target painted on their back, metaphorically speaking. So and so we have targeting. In fact, targeting is the right person to target is the most important factor. Traditionally, 40% of the success in direct marketing comes down to targeting right customer. Timing is 30%, the proposition is 20%, and creative is 10% in the way it's measured in the past. So the customer is a target. But Eckhart's point, I think, is more fundamental, which is, as I said before, customers have jobs to be done. And they come to talk to us in order to get help, to get their jobs done faster, easier, and better, to get their desired outcomes. So making progress through your journey as a customer is really, really important. And often companies don't do much to help you make progress. They don't provide the information, they don't provide the content, they don't provide the tools to help you. what Bob Wixom at MIT CSR calls data wrapping. They don't engage in data wrapping in an appropriate way in order to be able to make sure you can get more of what you want to get to your end goal faster, and for the journey to be shorter, fast, and easy as possible. Let's not forget we have the peak trend end rule that we use to decide whether an interaction or whether a series of interactions actually works for us. So it has to get better over time, and the emotional peak has to be the end when you finally get what you come for. If I'm talking to your bank, I mean, good luck with that. So I think it's exactly right. Your job as a customer experience person is to help customers make progress towards their goals. And their goals are getting their jobs done, getting their desired outcomes faster, easier, and better than the alternative, which is doing it themselves or doing it with somebody else. But often people do it with somebody else.
Question in that direction, if I'm not mistaken. People are doing and celebrating a lot of rituals. Name a celebrated CX ritual you would ban unless it is tied to a decision or outcome, and what should replace it? Did you catch the question?
I didn't quite catch the question. No, it was
I will do my very best to repeat it. Name a celebrated CX ritual you would like to ban unless it is tied to a decision or an outcome, and what should replace that ritual if you ban it.
So this is a very good thing. So the ritual I would ban, and not ban, but I think it actually works, is I've spent many years working with more than a dozen different telcos around the world. All of them have retention teams. So you come towards the end of your contract. So you've got on a contract, or you're out of contract. You've gone beyond the end of the contract. But you're still using the telephone, and somebody will come to the bright idea of saying this person is at risk of defecting. So we're going to contact them with an offer. In the past, we had 6 mobile contracts with, I'm going to name names now, with T-Mobile. And I knew when one of our contracts was out of contract, because I get a call from somebody, an agency working on T-Mobile's behalf, to say, I've got this great offer for you. And you're thinking, okay, that you've just told me I'm out of contract. And you're making an offer to me to try and keep me, to get me to sign up to another contract. But now all I'm going to do now is go to the shop and have a look for myself and look around and see if I can get a better offer. In fact, I wrote after one particularly bad series of interactions around a retention call involving multiple trips to my local T-Mobile shop. We radically downsized our holding of mobile phones. We went down from 6 mobile contracts, including my I1 roaming as well, which is earning €500 ARPU a month, and that's 10 years ago. So you can see, he was traveling around the world. We went down from a lifetime value of 20 years, I calculated at €112,000.
Hallelujah.
Down to a lifetime value of €12,000 by radically pruning away the things we didn't need, all triggered by a dumb as bread retention call and a really badly handled interaction in the T-Mobile shop. They lost €100,000 worth of calculated revenue. ARPU, free money. ARPU is free money, more or less, because I've already sold me the telephone. I've been there for 10 years. Through that combination of things. So I would not ban, but I would severely, really have a hard look at retention calls, retention teams and how they work. Usually when they call you, you already got one foot out of the door anyway. So it takes a big bravery to come back, and often you're not very satisfied either. So the funny thing is, with AI and with advanced analytics, I shouldn't be using it to identify people who are going to be at risk of churning. I should be using it to identify those interactions early in the life cycle that create a propensity to churn much later on. I should be fixing those things that are broken before they become a problem. That seems to be beyond most telcos, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it is interesting, what you cannot see, Graham, is that we have a wave of interaction which is driving positive flow extra. So let's start with Tony, who has placing that statement. as the statement is, it's CX is the responsibility of the CEO. The outcomes of corporate culture, offering performance,
Sure.
and operating model. CX not an individual role. Do you agree?
So the answer, as we would say in Deutsch, is Jein, ja und nein, yes and no. And for a very simple reason, ja, yes. If your business strategy is to compete on the meaningfully differentiated CX, a superior experience, then yes, it's the CEO's responsibility because it's the business strategy. If CX is not your business strategy, it's just an operational element, then no, the CEO shouldn't be bothered with that. They have other people to look after those things. It's an operational thing, and it's a really difficult thing to decide. Where the hell do I put the CX team? When I'm not going to give them power and authority over marketing, sales, and service. I'm not going to give them a big budget and a big team, so they're going to be reduced to be similar role influencing from the side. Very, very tough gig to play. So I'm not going to argue about where we should put it because it varies on the company and the individual going to play that role. Back to Alex Reed and Ben Phillips, wonderful, amazing people. I would hire them in an instant to do turnarounds or to work on CX stuff. They're 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million people. They're not like all the other CX people that I talk typically, certainly not in management. So yeah, if CX is your business strategy, you're going to meaningfully differentiate yourself using that, then it's CEO's job. If not, it's somebody else's job.
Then let's play it a bit hard with Graham Robson. Graham is teasing us a bit in such way that if the CX platform vendors and marketing teams align themselves so strongly with CX, is that why do they do this if the function has so little power?
That's a very good question, but I think there's an acronym that applies to that, a hashtag, and the hashtag is hashtag MRDA, Mandy Rice Davis Applies. And MRDA, Mandy Rice, is in the Profumo sex scandal in, I think it was the 1970s. Mandy Rice Davis was a model who was called before Parliament to testify, and somebody said something, and her response was, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? That's the Mandy Rice Davis Applies. So if your job is to sell CRM technology last year, and this year, CX has exploded onto the scene. So last year's CRM technology is now CX technology. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to align myself with those who are buying technology. Last year it's CRM, this year it's CX. I mean, it's being pejorative here, but just for the sake of it's a bit of hyperbole, for the sake of theatre. So I'm going to align myself with those who are going to be buying CX, and we know that people buying technology, people are very big buyers of technology on the assumption if I buy technology X, then it will solve my problems. You know my favorite equation, don't you? OO plus NT equals EOO, one from the old days in PricewaterhouseCoopers. Old organization plus new technology equals expensive old organization. Microsoft CRM, Dynamics. If you look in their design for success, I think it's called, which is the implementation handbook methodology for implementing Microsoft Dynamics. Right at the beginning, you have an amazing statistic, which is they say for every $1 you spend on their technology and data, you should be spending $3 to $4 on building out those complementary capabilities you need to make the technology work. Let's not forget that only 30% of the market technology is typically used, when even though you're paying for all of it. Another part of that should be spent on facilitating change in your organization, old world to new world. Then technology plus complementary capabilities plus change. The rest should be spent on facilitating transformation enabled by the operating model driven by those three things. So vendors' job is to put bums on the seats of their technology. They're going to focus on people buying technology on the assumption technology is going to solve their problems. It's not, and it's alone. It requires those other things as well. But there's a great cartoon by Marketoonist, Tom Fishburne, the wonderful cartoonist, Marketoonist. It has a row of dogs sitting around a table, marketing dogs. And they're saying, this year we're going to focus on our marketing goals. And one reports would say, look, squirrel. So, the message is marketers often get distracted by technology baubles.
Yeah.
The latest new thing, rather than focusing on fixing the basics. There's a wonderful book written in 2004 by Barwise and Meehan called Simply Better. And the book is basically saying, fix all the crap that shouldn't be there in the first place. Make you experience your services before customer experience time, really. Make your service simply better. Fix all the things that are broken. It is a wonderful book. It is as relevant today as it was when it was written. Yesterday's CRM is today's CX. Today's CX is tomorrow's AI-driven CX. Same thing.
Now let's have another one from Tony. Customers interface as a whole, along with offerings, other means of delivering customer experience. Narrowing it down to customer service is simply wrong. That's why I believe in the revenue operations approach.
Absolutely, bingo, spot on. So I mean, in the olden days, RevOps was sales, revenue operations, sales. Tony's vision is much broader than that. I've talked to Tony many times about this. This is why I'm such a big fan of what he's doing at 180 Ops. Tony's vision is that, CRM and customer experience in marketing plus sales plus customer service, it should all be part of one bigger whole. This revenue operations model. I think that's the right way to go. That's what CX should have been, but never turned out to be. Got hijacked by people looking at journey maps and VOC and other ephemera that are relevant really to the service we come for in the first place. So, I think Tony is exactly right. RevOps is how we should, or integrating these things should be how we do these things. That's where the money's going to be. It is extraordinarily hard. Marketing often doesn't talk to sales. Nobody talks to customer service because they're in a different town or a different planet typically, or a different country. Sales is all the jokes from the Dilbert cartoon where customer service is running in out of Bodnia or some foreign place where nobody speaks the lingo. Or that wonderful, the best Mickey take I've ever seen of customer service is that sketch, the scene in the middle of the Transformers film where the elite soldiers are dialing up from Egypt when they're attacked by alien robots or technology. Dialing up a call center, and he says, "Would you like our international?" And he said, "No, patch me to the general." That's noticed. But there is a point though. Service is not just customer service. I talk about service a lot. The service experience is not customer service experience. It's the service experience. Service is the exchange of competencies and assets, resources for the benefit of another. That's the definition of service. That's the SD logic definition of a service. That means that applies in marketing, that applies in terms of brand marketing and sales activation marketing, that applies in sales, that implies in service, but it also applies in all those, most customers don't care much about marketing, sales, and they have to do a service every now and again, but they don't care about marketing, sales. They care about the product in use. Does it do what I bought it for? We talked a bit about the 3 R's of personalization. Respect, recommendations, and reinforcement of the value we already get from the thing they've already bought. So, service is all of those things. It's not just customer service. And so what Tony's trying to do with the 180 Ops is exactly that. It's trying to make sure that every time we have a service interaction, whether it's a marketing, a sales, a customer service, or an operational product in use interaction, that the customer gets access to competencies, capabilities, and resources to help them get their jobs done. That's what it's all about. That's Eckhart's point about making progress.
That is why I have the big smile, because he was our guest last episode. So Tony was pre-warned, and you gave us the hint that would be a marvelous opportunity to chit-chat with him on that model of revenue operations. Now, having said that, and that we have such a vivid discussion, I would drive, that's the reason why I have looked to the left. Some of our regular heroes, such as my dear friend Thomas, he is looking around the trust parameter from Edelman. And analyzing this, he argues that CX must pivot from function delivery to engines of trust, fairness, and local connection, such as to become more strategic. And it is the question I would like to place towards you, Graham. Do you operationalize trust as an outcome in strategic customer experience, metrics, decision, products, governance, and where do the OCX, SCX split on trust should go for?
So I'm going to, like all good politicians, I'm going to answer a different question now, but it's related to the question you answered, which is, I don't see trust as being as important as Thomas and some others make out. It's become a popular talking point. So some time back when I was running GDPR for a UK telco, we spent a lot of time researching what we should have as our guiding principles for our data principles for the company as part of GDPR. So I looked at all the things around privacy paradox and trust with data, blah, blah, blah. And out of that came 5 factors, and those are quite indicative for us. The first of those was security. So are you keeping my data secure from people who should not have access to it, both internal and external? The second thing is transparency. Are you telling me what you're going to do with my data and who you're going to share it with? The third thing is control. Are you giving me control of it? What you can do with data as is inappropriate, not always appropriate. I don't always want it either. The fourth thing was improvement. Are you improving these things all the time? But the big thing was value. Am I getting something back in return for the data that I give you? So I give you some data, which I have to give you in order to provide a service, provide a contract. But if I give you additional data, I want something back, more back in return. This is what's sits behind data-driven personalization. The trust things around security, looking after my data and transparency and a little tiny bit of control, those things are things that I need to put in place. Otherwise, I'm not going to be in business with you in the first place. If I don't trust you with my data, if I have no idea what the hell you're going to do with it, and I don't have any control whatsoever over what you're going to do with it, then I'm not going to trust you enough to do business with you in the first place. So what we have is trust as a hygiene factor that has a threshold. If you don't cross the threshold, I'm not going to do business with you. So I'm not going to do any more than the absolute minimum business with you if I have to use you in the first place. So I see trust not as and the point is, beyond that threshold, it's not more trust that drives more business. It's more value in particular that drives more business. So it's getting something in return for whatever it's utility of the data that I provided to you, if you like, in crude economic terms. So I don't see trust as being a differentiator in this space, unless trust is so poor that you need to get to, make it simply better, if you like, to get to a point where you are above the threshold automatically. So trust becomes a normal hygiene factor rather than something I need to aspire to. And that I can focus on providing more value, mutual value co-creation by using your data to do things that you want. And the more you give me what I want, the more the data gives you to do things. And if you think about it, most of the companies have today is what I call is big data. It's coded because it's old data. It's transactional. It's about customers, contracts, contacts, and consumption. That's not very, and it's a concern with me, not with anybody else. What I really want is something different in order to be able to help you. What I want is thick, warm, contextual data about my aspirations, about my intentions, and about my real lived experience that drive those things. That's what. But that sits on my handset. It doesn't sit in your database because I'm not going to give you access to the information because you're going to misuse it against me, like all this data I've given you in the past. So what we see now is that AI is inexorably driving decision points away from the central big brain model that Pega and others promoted for many years successfully and did a great job with that. Towards the big brain being a small brain on your handset, fed through federated learning and giving you power of your control over your data and who can get access to it for what purposes, with agents working on your behalf, something that Jamie Smith talks a lot about. This is where things are inevitably moving, and people like Sinch Deacons at Data Sapien are building tools that does it together with corporate clients, corporate partners. So this is where decisioning is moving to, away from the big corporate center. There's always going to be there providing frameworks and pathways and what have you, but the real-time decision is going to move more over that border from inside the company to the border, then onto the handsets of customers. Now, either you provide the tools or somebody else will provide the tools for you, like Data Sapien. So
I would like to jump.
It was possible before AI.
I just want to jump in on some aspects what Annika Björk, CX Heroine, CX Heroes founder, has talked about, such as on embedding CX systematically with measurable impact, and warns against the actionism, so to say, that just placing a CX department and not enabling the people and empowering them is not a really smart way. She is for definitional clarity of PS versus CX, and I would like to ask you, what are your 3 non-negotiable definitions CX leaders must standardize, such as journey outcome decision, before scaling strategic customer experience?
Okay, so let's look outside and work our way in. So we need to have a standard of who our customers are, first of all, and what jobs they're trying to do. Because they come to us for help. If we don't know what they're trying to do, how on earth can we help them to get what their jobs done faster, even better? So that's the first thing. A standard approach to thinking about who's the customer, what are the jobs we've done, and as a consequence of that, which customers can we afford to serve? Because they match what we can do, and what can they not afford to serve? That's the first thing, the customer-orientated view. The second thing I would think about is, what are our capabilities? What are our combinations of purpose, data, process, technology, roles, collaborative working, work system, and governance that we use to deliver what customers want in a strategic way or an operational way? So that's the operating model view. So we need a standard definition of capabilities and how those things drive value for customers and drive value for shareholders, if you like. That's the capability view. The third view is actually interesting. People haven't talked about this so far, but I think it's quite important, which is, what the hell are competitors doing? We're not out there in the part of strategy is deciding how we're going to compete against our competitors in the marketplace. Are we going to compete on being the lowest cost provider? That doesn't work for CX because it's expensive. Or how do we meaningfully differentiate ourselves to gain an advantage through CX as a strategy, or operationally deliver really, really good CX with money available? But in order to do that, in order to be able to understand what's going on in the world of the customer and to understand what capabilities we need to develop, we need to understand the competitors, what they're doing as well. Yeah. And these 3 things, an orientation around customers, their jobs and their desired outcomes, orientation on the capabilities that enable our operating model, and an orientation around the bigger world of the marketplace, is actually not my invention. This is what's called market orientation. And the Marketing Science Institute in the 1980s, 1990s did a whole load of research. They identified this market orientation. They looked at whether it outperforms customer orientation, which it does significantly, replicated many times in the intervening 40 years. So Mark Ritson, the famous and iconoclastic marketing professor and marketing guru, his whole mini MBA in marketing is built around a framework of market orientation. This market orientation framework, proven to over 40 years, customers, capabilities, competitors, the 3 C's, are the 3 things that I would look to define, because we know that adopting a market orientation will drive superior performance compared to adopting a sales orientation, a customer orientation, or any other orientation. Hard research, undisputable facts.
As we are close to the hour, we would like to try something new, Graham, also with you, as we have tested this with the CEO for Question Pro and last round with Tony. I will ask you a question, and I would like, after I shot that question towards you, that you give me a fast answer, no longer than 30 seconds. Okay. That's the deal. Metric swap. 1 metric out from CX dashboards. 1 in and why? And where would you like, such as replace touchpoint vanity metrics with outcome success, decision quality, something like that, what you have mentioned?
So 30 seconds. I can make it shorter than that. So I would not replace, but I would augment. We need a balanced scorecard of measures. We know how that works. 1980s, a couple of Norton's work. I would augment NPS CSAT and CES, which are corporate proxies for how they think customers should behave, with customer perceived value measures. We don't have them currently, so I look forward to creating a customer balance scorecard, how customers perceive the universe and the world of working with you and what they're looking for, to augment the business balance scorecard, which is our view of how the world of customers works. I think if we did that, we had those two scorecards, we understand how they relate to each other, we'd be in a much better position to be able to co-create value sustainably, i.e. profitably over a long period of time, and to create more shareholder value than we would otherwise by using the matrix we've used in the past.
Let's go for the second question. Thanks for answering the first one.
Okay.
Personalization sanity check. What's your red flag that personalization is destroying value?
Okay, so my red flag would be personalization that is driven by the needs of marketing, not the needs of customers. We talked about the 3 R's, so respect, recommendations, and reinforcement of value we've already got. If personalization isn't driven by those 3 things, it's driven by the needs of marketing, that's my red flag. I mean, 70% from McKinsey study from memory, 70% of customers say they want personalization like I've described. These are from McKinsey research. 75% say they're not getting it.
Surprise!
It's the divide between marketing and customers. It's age-old thing. Fix it. Get it sorted out. Focus on personalization. What customers want, not what you want.
The second one, nicely answered. Now let's go for the third one. OCX, kill, pain, pick. The one defect most CX leaders should eliminate first in 2026.
Okay, this is a good one. I'm going to be controversial, just for change.
Okay.
I would eliminate journey maps. Let me explain why. So yes. I saw a post the other day saying it was a CX doyen, female expert, talking about not Annika. Annika's wonderful, somebody else, talking about what they would do in approaching a project, and they would say, first thing to do is draw a journey map. I ran a project for a large European airline a little while ago. We analysed 24,000 verbatims to identify the key interaction points and the key jobs that were not being done well. Out of all that data, that was part of a piece of work around transformation and network recovery. We did not need to draw a journey map. We needed to identify what the real problem points were and then identify, using Toyota Carter approach from Mike Rother, how we're going to fix them. The idea that you would start with a journey map for the sake of what I call mapping myopia is a real problem. People have generated this mapping myopia model where you need to draw a journey map. You don't. If you've got a problem to fix, find out what the problem is and use a structured approach like Toyota A3s and Toyota Carter to do that dynamically, interactively. Fix the problem. Start with the biggest one and work your way through the problems, sequentially. Don't waste your time with a bloody journey map.
Yeah. I will embrace this, having had a lot of discussions with Phil Winters also on that topic. The German-speaking Europe Pulse. Complete the sentence for 2026. CX is...
In Deutsch or in English?
You are allowed to use both languages.
Okay, fine. Let me think what it is. That's not an easy one to do in a short term. CX is. And CRM is an easy one. CRM is treating different customers differently.
Okay.
So CX is helping customers get their jobs done faster, easier, and better, profitably.
Okay. And this is your statement for 2026.
Yes, okay. I think it's the time.
We take this.
The time statement.
Yeah. And the decision product ROI,
yes.
The challenge, the fastest data as a service use can to prove value in 90 days. What is your suggestion if you have a 90 days plan for our audience? What should they do?
What should they do? Okay, fine. So simple framework. I would start with I would adopt a Toyota A3 approach. So I start with identifying a problem. Then I work with people to identify what that problem actually means. We all agree on the problem through a process called Nemawashi, walking things around the building. Then I identify quickly, I would identify facts and figures that describe that problem in more detail. Again, walking through different people around the building, engaging them, getting different perspectives on where we want to go. You complete your next part of your A3 sheet. It's everything on an A3 sheet of paper, rather than loads of presentations and loads of other stuff. Then I'd be setting stretch targets. So what do I want to achieve as my targets? And again, I work with different people to work out what their perspective is, because I might need other people's engagement to do that, deliver those things. Then I identify the root cause of the problems that are causing, that illustrating the data and creating the problem. Then using my understanding of the root causes and my stretch targets, I identify interventions. And again, with other people through this Nemawashi process, that I'm into planning and finance and other things, and then implementation and measurement. This whole thing implemented in an iterative way using Toyota Kata. 90 days is plenty of time to use a structured problem-solving approach like I've described, A3's Nemawashi and Toyota Kata, to solve your most important problems. Then you move on to the next one and the one after that. And you know what you don't need? A bloody journey map.
Okay, thank you very much, Graham, for these fast 5 answerings on my friendly questions. I feel a bit like that good old Matt book, Snappy Answers to Stupid Questions. So I memorized that one. That's our CRMKonvo for today, dear audience. So sorry that we have to leave you alone now, but we have been over the hour for at least 7 minutes already, and this hour really flew by, and we enjoyed your interaction with us very much. To our guests, thank you for being such loyal and staying with us this week. And thanks, Graham, aka Dr. G, for joining us for another one, and looking forward to the next one. And for your time and insight, Graham.
My pleasure.
Turning next week, when we have an opportunity to dive into revenue intelligence with our dear friend Martin Schneider, who has been joining for now 1.5 years, if I'm not mistaken, constellation research. And in his journey through several organizations in vendor-specific and solution-specific areas, has gained some valuable insight on that specific revenue intelligence part. And I would like to encourage you, join us therefore next week, and a friendly waving to our audience before we go backstage. And thank you very much. It was, again, a pleasure to have you all here and to have such vivid interaction. Thank you, and looking forward for next Tuesday to meet you all again. Now I press the button.